You are so welcome here to Westbourne in Ennis in County Clare in the Diocese of Killaloe, which is my home, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to share some thoughts on a great saint of the Church who was canonised last year, a man called John Henry Newman. We focus on his life and what he has to offer to us today. When he was a young man, way back in the early 1800s, long time ago, like yourselves, he had ordinary everyday interests. At the age of 15, he went through a religious conversion in his life. Up to that, he hadn't a huge amount of interest in God or the Bible or Jesus, but he went through an interesting conversion at that point, where he got a sense of the presence of God. He got a sense of the presence of Jesus Christ in his life, that there was a thing called the Scriptures, and that there were definite ideals or ideas that one could follow to get a sense of fulfillment in life. And from that point, being a 15-year-old at school, at secondary school, he chased after that ideal for the whole of the rest of his life. And it gave him a great sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. And he achieved so much in his life in pursuing that goal through the medium of education, which you are at the early stage at now as a 15, 16-year-old, as you're pursuing your religious development through the book Soul Seekers that you're engaged with in secondary school. And I commend you in that. So going back to John Henry Newman, right throughout his life he was engaged with education, whether it was at Ealing, whether it was being a professor in Oxford, whether it was the start of the Oxford movement, which tried to give a people a sense of the renewal of the faith and getting back to the cores, the roots, the radical starting of Christianity and enthusing people with a sense of that. Or whether it was in the founding of one of the biggest universities in our country, which was the University in Dublin, that he founded in the 1850s. And later in his life in the Birmingham Oratory and in a place called Littlemore, he was always engaged in that process of education. One of the most important works that he wrote, it's regarded as a classic of literature, is a book called The Idea of a University, that even 100 years later, many people look to this in terms of guidance for what the essence of education is. And one of the big ideas that he had in that book on the idea of a university was that education is not something that is limited or confined, or not something that you do for 5 years in secondary school, but that it helps you to blossom as an individual, as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus Christ, as somebody that is searching for a sense of fulfillment in life. And it wasn't just something utilitarian that you do in terms of getting points to go to university so you can earn a salary, but it gives you a sense of broadening out as to what is your mission in life. How do you flourish fully as a human being? So education is supposed to be very broad, and it's not just something that you do during secondary school or university. You're engaged in that process of education right throughout your life. So Newman engaged with that hugely, and we look up to him as a great saint because he was a great man of literature. He was a brilliant English writer, and he was a man that had a great sense of the presence of God, and he got that through scriptures, through his engagement with scholarship, looking at the ideas of the early church fathers and mothers and great scholars right down through the various centuries of the church. And that did him an awful lot of good, and he shared that with so many other people. So I would hope and pray that you would have a sense of the enthusiasm and the idealism and the brilliance of John Henry Newman in his quest for the truth, in his quest for human flourishing, which he got through his engagement with education, that you are getting in your engagement with Soul Seekers in the great work that you are doing in secondary school as you prepare for Junior Cert and Leaving Cert. And I'll finish with a little prayer of John Henry Newman. May Christ support us all the day long, till the shades lengthen and the evening comes and the busy world is hushed and the fever of life is over and our work is done. Then in his mercy may he give us a safe lodging, a holy rest and peace at last. Amen. God bless you in your work and in your mission of education today and always. Amen.